What up? It's your boy TV Reaction. So I wanted to do this reaction video via L Train from Lubrication. I react to his video with Knife Wonder that came across as well too though. And if you follow L Train, he has a lot of like videos about music production as well too, as well as also videos on tips on how to do music production. I'm going to check out myself. Actually, check out his Lubrication as well too. Got a free sample, some free samples from there as well too, and definitely was worth it because I think I'm work with one of his sounds as well too. Although I'm like having a little brainstorm with I feel like something missing, but anyway, the sample sounds he got going is pretty cool though. So recently he just released a new video talking about a producer. You know how a lot of times they said that somebody's favorite artist is your favorite artist, or whatever favorite athlete your favorite athlete, such as whatever it's a rapper, wrestler, basketball player, whatever as well too though. This is definitely, you can see your favorite producer as well too though. He helped shape some of the hip hop sounds of the mid to late 80s as well, mid to late 80s as well too though, with his sample style, his drum kit as well too. Also inspiration, one of the most iconic hip hop and boom bap era, that is Lost Professor as well, and there's a connection with that, as you know, Lost Professor is associated with Main Source, and this producer was also associated with the guy who would later on replace Lost Professor Main Source. That's Mikey D, as he's part of this crew called Mikey D and LA Posse. The producer I'm talking about is none other than Paul C, or full name Paul C McCasty. Paul C shaped a lot of sounds as well too. He was a mentor to the likes of Lost Professor. A lot of people talk about him being the J Dilla of the time as well. And he shaped a lot of sounds in hip hop, was through his production or his engineering and arrangement well too. And also, sadly, one of the biggest what if in hip hop, as his life was cut short tragically in 1989 as well too though, was not only shaped the world of hip hop, but shaped the world with a lot of careers, again my careers in hip hop as well too. As well though, if he don't, and if he don't break it down, I'll break it down to you. But just to say that, due to some speculation, a lot of folks' career got halted. But anyway, so without further ado, we're gonna take this video called "The Tragic Untold Story of Hip Hop's Most Influential Producer."
Marley Marl, Pete Rock, DJ Premier, all legends of hip hop. But there's one name missing from that list. A producer who helped inspire them, but never got the credit. Paul C. McCasty. He inspired new techniques for chopping drums, turned obscure records into staples, and mentored Large Professor, all before his life was cut short at 24. This is the story of Paul C.
Paul C was one of the greatest.
Paul C, he was a legend, man.
Whatever he touched was fucking bananas.
The J Dilla of his time.
Paul C was definitely a genius.
Paul was a gift from God to hip hop.
He evolved the whole swing of hip hop.
And sweet crazy, always see stuff like this though, because there's always some untold legends that don't give much credit as the well-known, and these well-known legends will put this legend in a pedestal because that's how influential was too. It kind of remind me of how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar will always he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but he always put up the pedestal of one of his favorite basketball players of all time that was a rival to him. That's none other than Earl the Goat Manigault as well too. You know what I'm saying, who had a problems career, but tragedy hit with substance abuse, but he was able to bounce back and started the whole street ball history as well too with Rucker Park, continuing Rucker Park street ball as well too. But Paul C as well too. His legacy lives on through a lot of hip hop artists as well too that he influenced. But let's get into the story of get to know Paul C a little more. Let's get it.
Rosedale, Queens, 1964. Paul McCasty grew up as the youngest in a family of music-obsessed record collectors.
Just loved music, he was into rock, funk, and all that. I remember first time I got introduced to Sly and the Family Stone, which I didn't know until Paul said, yo, you gotta check these cats out.
His brother John kept a huge record library, wall-to-wall vinyl that Paul would spend hours listening to. Inevitably, he wanted to pick up an instrument for himself.
He played bass guitar, so my oldest brother, Billy, and a few of his friends, they would get together and jam out.
Everybody who knew Paul at that age talks about how deeply he...
Hold on a second. Let me check that real quick. I'm back. I also closed the door though, because I just realized I had to drive in the background. Anyway, let's keep going.
He studied music. His future bandmate, Lindley Farley, put it simply. He was a historian about pop music and soul music. And that's what informed everything he did. In 1981, Paul joined a local pop rock group called the Amanda Lindley Roadshow, earning gigs at legendary New York clubs like Max's Kansas City. And in '85, they recorded their debut album.
That's where that headshot came from, okay. What's the group called then? We'll look that up, check that out real quick. Yeah, that's where that headshot I always see came from that album right there. That's interesting. I always see that headshot when we talk about Paul C a lot. So, look that. The road show. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. We only get see a lot about that with this Road Show called Three Cavalier, and then this guy, oh, that's a music video. Okay, interesting though as well too. Yeah, but yeah, that headshot that you see right here, you shoot in a minute.
New York clubs like Max's Kansas City. And in '85, they recorded their debut album.
Yeah, that right headshot is I always see that a lot when I look at Paul C.
Where Paul got his first taste of working in the studio.
Paul started production when we were doing the album, the Mandolin Roadshow. We recorded at I-5 Studio, and he worked with Moogie Klinman on production. He would go there and do some engineering work, and he really took to it.
By the mid-'80s, Paul's curiosity had switched to the studio. After cutting his teeth with the Mandolin Roadshow, he built a small setup at home, a drum machine, a 4-track, and stacks of vinyl.
I remember his first hip-hop recording, which is called I'm Coming in the House. This was recorded in his basement when he first started, and he was kind of shy about playing it.
Word about Paul's little basement setup started to spread. One of the first crews to stop by were the Clientele brothers, Queens pioneers who cut early demos with him right there in his bedroom. Through those sessions and members like Will Seville, Paul was introduced to a young MC from Laurelton, Mikey D.
First time I met Paul C, we was in Queens. I was with my older brother, Eddie OJ. We was walking around the neighborhood, sipping on 40s or whatever. My man Will Seville was like, let's go to Paul's house. I never met Paul. I heard about him. Got to this garage where we heard the music coming from. When we went in the garage, it was Paul C on his drum machines just doing his thing.
Together with DJ Johnny Quest, they formed Mikey D and the LA Posse. Yep. Mikey on the mic, Paul producing and engineering, and Quest on the decks.
Yep.
Me and Mikey made some tapes with my man Will Seville in my garage. I had like a small setup, a drum machine, and we had made some cassettes, and they sounded kind of funky.
They were just street tapes passed from hand to hand. But for Paul, it was the first step from experimenting in his garage to becoming a name people in Queens started to talk about. Always on the hunt for new gear, Paul wandered into a small basement studio in Jamaica, Queens called 1212. He only came to pick up a synthesizer, but the moment he stepped inside, he fell in love with the place, so much so that he asked for a job. The studio gave him a chance to really hone his skills behind the boards. But most importantly, it meant he could sneak his LA Posse crew in after hours to record using proper gear. One of the first of those records to see the light of day was Busta Rhyme Mic, which was an early sign of Paul's studio innovation.
That beat by Paul told me to go. Then he said go. then go. And he did all of the rest of it and put it together and made it sound like somebody was beatboxing. He did that in the 12, the SP12.
Actual fact. You know what I'm saying? Word about Paul's skills at 1212 spread quickly, with local crews practically lining up for the same magic touch. One of the first through the door was Super Lover C and Casanova Rock.
We went in, and now we're looking at Paul C. It's my first time in the studio, and then I'm watching this man work, and I'm saying, wow, like he's doing some work here that, how is he doing this? You told Paul, hey, this is what I want, and do that little nod, and that was it, man. And he put that
Look, he didn't need a movie about this kid. If it was like a 2B movie, who knows? They need a movie for this guy, yo.
whole thing together.
The result was Do the James, a track pulled from the overlooked James Brown record.
Yup!
And flipped into a Queen's anthem.
Yup!
It became their breakout
I'm
single.
telling you, your favorite producer, yo, main shapes on the sounds of the mid to late 80s, mostly to the late 80s though, yo. And this is one of the like most iconic, underrated and iconic joint right here in hip hop, Do the James, yo, as well as many other from Super Lovers C and Casanova Run, yo.
And Paul didn't just pluck that James Brown joint out of thin air. Digging was an obsession.
He had one of the largest record collections that I can remember. He had a walk-in closet in his basement, wall-to-wall records stacked 5 records high, rows across. It was thousands of records, man. Stuff that to this day I couldn't find.
Paul wasn't done innovating with Mikey D either. After Busta Rhymes Mike put them on the map, the crew came back in 1988 with I Get Rough. This time, Paul brought in Rahzel the Human Beatbox for one of his wildest ideas.
I remember when we did I Get Rough, and I Get Rough is the bass line of Brick House. But instead of using the sample, used Rahzel's voice and flipped it into the SP12 and made it sound like a regular bass line.
Young Rahzel. Wow. Wow.
He turned the SB12's limitations into strengths, creating
right
instruments in places nobody else would have thought to look. At 1212, Paul was carving out a distinct sound, raw, heavy, and unlike anything else coming out of Queens. By 1987, Paul's name was buzzing beyond his borough. Artists came to 1212 for one reason. They knew Paul C could make their records hit harder than anyone else.
Everything he touched was thick. When it came through Studio 1212 in Queens, Paul C, it came out thick.
The next group to come through the studio were none other than Ultramagnetic MCs. And Paul helped to shape their debut album, Critical Beatdown, alongside Said G.
Paul was the type of engineer, if you came in there and you was doing your session and it was weak, Paul would just call time out and go to his record collection and pull out something and put it on there and add life to it.
That approach defined Critical Beatdown. Working alongside Said, Paul pushed the SP1200 further than anyone else thought possible.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the first that, worked with the infamous SP200. And everybody talk about this sample being the pinnacle of hip hop right here.
One of the
pinnacle of hip hop as well too. He was the one that innovated that.
Things they discovered was the power of panning old records to isolate instruments, which they used on Give the Drummer Some.
Ready. And now it's my turn to build, uplift, get swift, then drift.
He was the first cat, I think, who found out if you pan a record that sometimes the drum tracks would be isolated on one side and all the music would be on the other side.
The record Paul zeroed in on was D. Felice Trio's There Was a Time, a James Brown produced track from '69. At the beginning of the track, you hear the drums and the bass playing together. But if you listen closely, the bass is panned hard left, and the drums hard right. Paul would sample just the right channel, totally eliminating the bass and giving him some clean drums to work with. If panning showed Paul's ingenuity, it was his approach to drums that gave his
So he's also, you say that he was a inventor of what people use nowadays, stems. Right there. He was stemming before stem would happen, like I said, ahead of his time right there. It's crazy.
It's their unmistakable character.
There was nobody to this day and age that had truncated drums or sampled drums in the way Paul C did. He introduced the sampling of drum with the full decay of the sound. In the beginning, we used to sample and truncate a drum snare just by itself. He had the insight to let the decay of the hi-hat go behind it. Like if we hear Give the Drummer Something that he did for Ultra, that drum program is crazy.
Early samplers only gave you a few seconds of memory, so most producers clipped their drum sound short, just the attack, no tail. Paul realised that the little bleed of a hi-hat behind a snare or the natural room reverb on a kick made the pattern breathe. By keeping the full decay, his programmed drums felt more alive than anyone else's.
I like how he's kind of breaking down his own way too. What usual his tips he does. It's kind of like what Navi do in a way, so I like this.
Then there was the way he mixed them.
His compression on drums, that solidified hip-hop. He was the first guy to compress and to add that extra punch to the drums. He gave that pulse of hardcore, grimy hip.
That's something I gotta learn how to do is the whole compressed thing as well too, though. I gotta learn that for sure, though. With NBC, though. And NBC, I've been using like, you know, auto mix or like best mix as well too, but I feel like I need compression to get that sound too. So yeah, hopefully I can find somewhere to help me use me school me or something like that for sure.
Hip hop sounds.
He treated his drums like instruments, shaping them with EQ and compression so they cut through the mix. Where other records sounded thin, his filled the speakers.
Whatever he touched was fucking bananas. You throw it on in the sound system right now and it will destroy 80% of records that are engineered right now.
He even had a hand in unearthing some of hip-hop's biggest breaks. A perfect example is Steezo's It's My Turn.
Yep. It's my turn.
The track he sampled Skull Snap's It's a New Day.
Yep. One another infamous drum break that is sampled in hip hop till this day. It's crazy.
Beefing up the drums and convincing Steezo to leave the intro as just drums.
Paul C was one of the first engineers to enhance that sample and basically put bottom under it and made it louder and heavier.
The decision set off a sampling craze, with many producers sampling that thicker, heavier mix directly off Steezo's record. At a time when producers were looping 4 or 8 bars, Paul was slicing records into fragments. A horn stab here, a guitar lick there, and reassembling them into something brand new.
Paul C was like so meticulous. He turned the knobs and yo, it's good. He's like, no, it ain't. Step out. Leave the room.
One of the people who saw it up close was Large Professor, Paul's student and later one of hip-hop's great producers in his own right. Looking back, he put it simply, that's what Paul C brought to hip-hop, the chop. Paul's influence wasn't limited to the records he made. In the studio, he was shaping the artists around him.
Why I love Paul C is that I went in to do a song, and like a lot of MCs at that time, I went past the 16-bar measure. He stopped the session, closes.
Wow, I knew he's out. I knew Pheromone was out for a while before with the organized confusion, but I didn't know he was about that early. Wow, that's pretty awesome right there. Let me go back. I didn't know he was out that early. Wow.
Records he made. In the studio, he was shaping the artists around him.
Why I love Paul C is that I went in to do a song, and like a lot of MCs at that time, I went past the 16-bar measure. He stops the session, closes the session, and sends me home. When you learn how to count bars, come back and talk to me. I was getting a little name at the time, and nobody had ever told me some shit like that. He was just like, who's your favorite artist? Go listen to those records. Learn how to fucking rap. Learn how to count. Till you do that, don't come back to the studio.
By 1988, Paul was no longer just the secret weapon of Queens. He was engineering Biz Markie, Eric B and Rakim, ghost producing for crews like Ultramagnetic and Steezo, always leaving his fingerprints even when the credits didn't show his name. By the end of the 80s, Paul's sound was everywhere, shaping underground experiments and major label records alike. On the night of July 16th, 1989, Paul was in the studio as usual, engineering a late session for a new Boston crew called the Almighty RSO. When the work was done, he was dropped home in the early...
Oh, wow. If you're not familiar with that, you should know what RSO is. If you're not familiar with the group, you're familiar with one particular member of the crew who is well-known in hip-hop or unintentionally well-known in a reality show, and his daughter's in hip-hop too. is currently hip hop as well too. That's none in Bozino, and his daughter is Coil Ray. But yeah, Bozino, that was his original crew. RS or Almighty RS show at the time was an old Boston. Started on Boston '88 in the late '80s as well too. Then got well known in the '90s, and then later on 2 members and another member from another rapper from another Boston crew came a trio called Main Man as well too, with likes of Tommy Theme from Belly and You and I and Deja Vu with Drone Master P as well. And then Bazina, do you know the whole story with Zena with Rock the Party and his beef with Eminem to his nonsense on love and hip hop. Anyway, let's keep going.
The hours. The next morning, Paul's brother Tim found him in his Rosedale home, shot 3 times in the head and the neck as he slept. He was only
That's sad. They go out like that. Jesus.
only 24 years old.
I came in the studio, Mick answered the door. He said, Paul's dead. I just fell on the floor. I said, no, you're not. I just talked yesterday. Me and him hugged for maybe 2 hours. Couldn't understand.
The murder sent shockwaves through the Queen's hip-hop community. Nobody knew who could have wanted Paul dead, and to this day the case remains unsolved. He should have been a name alongside the greats. Instead, his murder froze his legacy in place, not as a giant of hip-hop history, but as one of its great what-ifs.
Yep.
Though Paul's life was cut short, his ideas carried on. The techniques he pioneered became part of the DNA of hip-hop.
To me, the Pete Rocks, the Dillas, the Dre's, the Q-Tips. If Paul would have been alive, I think Paul would have been most definitely mentioned in that same breath, if not at times above that breath.
He never got his chance to claim his place beside those names. But the sound Paul C shaped and the producers he inspired ensure his presence is still felt in hip-hop today.
Yeah, wow, that's dope. And I'm saying that also a rock hip hop, not just with the death in general with the death as well too, but unfortunately some careers was rocked because of it as well too though. As you know, fortunately some people that worked with Paul anyway was brought in as suspect well too, one including Super Lover C and Castle Roy, innocent of course, but because of that they label dropped them and they got blacklisted. Was sad right there though. Yeah, that's sad right there. My RSO got brought in. They got questions as well too, but they had no involvement as well. That's just really a big what if and a big tragedy and an underrated tragedy in hip hop as well too. I would say big because like it's not talked about enough as heavy, but underrated track as well too. But in the late '80s, we dealt with some tragedy in hip hop. The other one being Scholar Rock, BDP, and a good amount of others though. So yeah. Other than that, this definitely was a good video to check out as well too. A lot of breakdown of how he got started and how he shaped the sounds and the style, shaped the sound of hip hop and the style of hip hop producing that is carried on to this day though, such as early stems with panning, chopping, the use of the infamous SP1200, and many others as well too though. Again, shout out to El Trey for this one. I'm definitely gonna check out more videos from him as well. Other than that, if you like my reaction on this, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's your boy T-Bird signing off. One love. Yeah, I'm looking at the comments of these, man. I wanted to record this and let me know. I'm looking at the comments on this video, and it's a lot of good comments on there, even from folks who work with him, including Casanova himself though. That's pretty awesome. And he does a lot of gaming as well too. As well. So yeah, definitely cool video. This very cool video. Shout out to El Trey for this though. Put me on to this. I like it as well too. People actually work on Madden as well too. That's pretty awesome. Anyway, again, it's your boy T-Bird signing off. One love. R.I.P. Paul McKeskey and many others who have worked with him that no longer with us as well too, including Steezo and many others. It's your boy T-Bird signing off. One love.